Well, delighted to be joined by Dick Clerkin and Pat Spillane to look back on what was an unbelievable AIB All-Ireland Senior Club football final at the weekend. Literally had everything from start to finish. You couldn't paint a more dramatic game. And Pat, all the titles are in Kerry now. Senior, junior, intermediate, league, All-Ireland Senior. You have it all after what was a phenomenal win for Dingle over the weekend. What a game.
It was an amazing game. What a climax to what has been a brilliant club football championship, not alone in counties, but in province and in this All-Ireland the All-Ireland series. Do you know, we watched Stacks we watched Dingle and St. Finbarr's in the club final, in the Munster club final. You said, geez, it won't get better than this. Dingle coming from 7 points behind with 20 minutes to go and beating them, and Stephen Sherlock's heroics, Conor Gainey's free, everything. And then it went on to the semi-final. You said, well, it couldn't beat the Bars game, and Dingle and Ballyborden was an absolute unbelievable match. And then you say, well, we'd be greedy, but last Sunday's final was just capped it all. It was just captivating TV. Probably the best sporting entertainment I've seen on television for quite a while. It was superb. Sport is cruel. Bridget's have now lost 2 All-Ireland finals in the space of 3 years by a single point. There are heroes, there are villains, and I just, we'll talk about Dingle, I know, in greater detail, but like some of the heroics by the same Bridges boys. I mean, Rory Fallon's 1-6 from play from wing back. Shane Canan at midfield, unbelievable.
That catch, Pat.
That catch was unbelievable. That catch was superb. But, Conor Hans runs from deep, absolutely brilliant. But, can I just focus on and like I said, Dingle are the heroes because the winners get to write the history. The losers are forgotten about. But, there was just one player that I focused on, and I've focused on in the last couple of games because he's a player I greatly admire, and that's Ben O'Carroll. And Ben O'Carroll, in my opinion, is Bridget's best forward, and he's one of Roscommon's best forwards. Indeed, he's one of the top forwards in the country. And over the semi-final, and particularly last Sunday, look, Ben had a nightmare game, and he's not that bad. But I just felt, I always remember losing the 5 in a row final. And I always remember going into a toilet cubicle in Croke Park, and for 5 minutes I cried. And I came out of that cubicle, I stopped crying, and I said, right, I'm going to vow to get back playing football. I'm going to get a cruciate ligament operation, and I want to come back playing football again. I want to prove that I can do it on the big stage. And I used a quote last week in the Sunday World about Serena Williams. And Serena Williams said, champions aren't defined by their wins. Champions are defined by how they recover from failures. And I have no doubt about it. Ben O'Carroll has had a tough couple of days after that All-Ireland semi-final. But he's such a great player. Keep the head up, keep belting away, and he'll star again for Bridget's and Roscommon. So look, kudos to both teams for giving us such brilliant entertainment.
Dick, like from one end to the other, from the first minute to the last minute, Rory Fallon's 2-pointer to level off the outside of the right, like everything that the new rules promised, you'd have to say, was delivered the other day. Even like when Bridget's went 3 up in extra time, you're kind of thinking, oh, that might just be the buffer that they need. And then all of a sudden, Tom Sullivan comes forward, kicking some lovely scores. You've Gainey coming off the bench then and doing what he did. He actually got the dispossession to start the move and kicks the winner then. I didn't think it was even going to get over the bar. Like, it literally, I don't know if there's been as many talking points in a game of football, particularly a club game of football, than this game. And it must go down as one of the best club finals of all time. Probably the best. And probably the best club campaign of all time as well.
100% in terms of the spectacle, but the quality. Like, I went to the Scottstown Bridges game, the semi-final a couple of weeks back, and I was very taken with Bridget's. I thought actually Scottstown would win that game, but their discipline, just their savviness and how to beat the team in front of them, how to, as I say in Kerry, hammer the hammer, and the way they protected the arc, didn't allow any 2-pointers to be scored. And, players like Ryan Stack, you mentioned a couple of players there, Pat. Like, I have just so much. You talk about Kanan's catch. That second to Stack's catch in Scottstown against Scottstown that day. Remember when he nearly broke his neck? He went up that high, and he actually had a similar one in Croke Park. You know, leadership. You talk about leadership as an old trope that gets thrown out when you see players like him making high catches, guarding the D as defence, and then up. Like, remember, he had that goal chance. If he'd have fisted it over the bar, they would put in 2 points up.
What a block.
O'Connor got down and blocked him.
What a block.
But even for him to get up to at that stage in the game, after all the energy he put in, like it was countless. The amount of pivotal moments in terms of block interceptions that went out, and it was just, there was nothing lost in defeat. I know that means nothing. They're probably still sort of looking at each other in a bar in Athlone or somewhere, and it'll take a while for the clouds to lift. But they've come out of it with such huge credit. Like, I don't know what the age profile of that Bridges team is.
Young.
You know, yeah, young, I would have thought so. So, like, even you talked about young O'Carroll, and yes, he had a tough evening in the same way as he had a tough afternoon that day against Scotland. But he's young, Pat. Like, he'll grow, he'll learn, but he has to come back and sort of say, at that top level, you got to have 2 feet, you got to know when to shoot, you got to buy all that sort of stuff. Like, they'll come back. There's no reason to think that they'll be beaten in Roscommon, because that is a darn good Bridges team. Dingle, listen, if you plot their path to it, they could have went out at a number of stages. Sort of, I wouldn't say luck went with them. You make your own luck, but it's a tougher path for them to get back to that stage. With that Bridges team will probably, once they sort of let the dust settle, realise, you know what, that's 2 All-Ireland finals given away in the last 3 years. There's no reason they can't be back as sort of favourites to go again next year, because they've arguably got an easier path. But as a game itself, had everything. No, it didn't start like that. Remember the first 5 minutes, it was a dog. It was like, you know, sort of cat and mouse, who's going to go at here, and then Tom O'Sullivan stepped up and said, right, if the forwards aren't going to kick any bloody points here, he did, and sort of kicked the game into gear then. And like, look at his performance alone. Like, you could list off 10 performances of both sides, all of them up there with some of the best performances ever seen in an All-Ireland club final. We got them in one game.
Yeah. Just, Pat, you kind of mentioned about the Bridges lads there, and even, you know, focusing on fellas in defeat. Jeez, lads, I don't know if you saw the interview with Anthony Cunningham after. Oh my, like, even to come out and do the interview takes serious cojones. Like, he looked, and he did so well to even get through it. Like, he looked broken. And I probably disagree with you, Dick. I don't think their path back to an All-Ireland final is easy. Like, not saying easy, but like, Pearses are after putting together a stellar backroom team to try and make sure they don't even get out of Roscommon next year. There's the likes of Mike Cullen, Cara Finn, etc. And then obviously if they get further, God only knows who in an All-Ireland semi-final. But it's hard to get back there, Pat, and that's why it really hits you, especially when, not that you had one hand on the Andy Merrigan, but you were so close, and then all of a sudden it's just gone from your grasp.
You know, and Dick just was talking about the age profile, and there's no doubt about it. Like, the age profile of this Bridges team is young, and there's a big future for them. But sadly, there's no guarantee they'll be winning Roscommon next year. Not a mind winning Connacht or winning in All-Ireland. I mean, you think, like, this was probably Dingle's last hurrah, last chance saloon, because rest assured, almost certainly, that within 10 or 15 years, think about it, within 10 or 15 years, Dingle probably won't even be a senior club in Kerry because of the way the demographics are in Dingletown.
Can I just real quickly actually on that? I was chatting to somebody the other day, they were saying in recent enough years that Dingle couldn't even field an under-12 team. And because of their rivalries, I think they'd end up going to Tralee or somewhere to field.
No,
where did they go? Killarney? Where'd they go?
You look at the demographics for a start. 2 children started in junior infants in Dingle's National School this year. 2. So that's not a future. You take, for several years, up to the last 2 years, they amalgamated at minor level with Auniscall and Lisbon. I would imagine at underage level, they're only fielding a 13 aside, if they are fielding it at. But it's no different back the road in the Gaeltacht. At under 10 and under 12 level, Gaeltachts are now starting to struggle. So you look at the age profile of the Dingle team. You have Paul Ganey at 35, Mikey around the same age, Billy O'Connor at 36, Gavin Curran is probably moving to Australia to be with his partner. They had the child.
What about his story as well?
Well, it's an amazing profile, because I know, like his partner had a baby, had a child the morning of the All-Ireland. Mikey Gainey's wife was in Croke Park with her overnight bag because she's due any day now. That was two of them. So, like, it was Dingle's last chance saloon. But, you know, you talk about, Paul Gainey talked about maybe their name was on the cup this year. But, look, I've been lucky. I played in 11 All-Ireland finals. And, like, playing in an All-Ireland training, and all the number of training sessions and county games doesn't prepare you for the white heat of battle in an All-Ireland final in Croke Park when the pressure comes on. And what does pressure do to you? Pressure affects your confidence, and you have that lack of conviction. And I just saw a stat last week about Bridges, and this is what pressure does. From the third quarter, the end of the third quarter, to the end of the game, St. Bridges players had 17 shots at goal. 7 shots drop short. That's fear. That's pressure. That's a lack of conviction. And I can tell you this, if they were doing training session in Kiltoom, they wouldn't be dropping 7 out of 17 shots. That's what pressure does. The second thing I look at in terms of deciding a game, and I've been mentioning this a lot under the modern game, shooting efficiency is vital in the modern game. The team who's the more efficient shooting will probably win the game. Shooting efficiency from Dingle last week was 74%. That's fairly impressive. Shooting efficiency from Bridges was down to 59%. And you take the 2-pointers, and while they both scored 3 2-pointers each, Dingle's shooting efficiency from the 2-pointers was 75%, while St. Bridges' shooting efficiency at the 2-pointers was 25%. So like I said, shooting efficiency left them down. Pressure got the Bridges at the end. And like Dingle, and we've just, and I think you have to just mention again, this never say die spirit by them. 3 points behind against Mid-Kerry in the county semi-final, came back and win it. 7 points behind against Austin Stacks in the Munster final, came back to win it. Came from 7 points behind against St. Finbarr. Came from 10 points behind against Ballyboden. In extra time last Sunday, 3 points behind. But the heads never dropped. And even drill into their first half performance. In that first half performance, for 15 minutes, Bridges outscored them 6-0. In that first half, Paul Gainey and Conor Gainey got no score. But Dingle believed. They kept going, the heads kept, and they never... And, you know, there was one last thing, you know, and I know Keane O'Neill is a big believer of it in Kerry. Keane O'Neill is always demanding at Kerry training that he gets 20 to 30 minutes every session to work on turnovers, working on turnovers. Dingle's last 3 scores last Sunday came from 3 turnovers from Ned Ryan, from Mark O'Connor, and from Mikey Gainey. Like, that's battling to the very end. That's unbelievable. They're unbelievable stats. They're some of the stats. They're some of the reasons why Dingle won.
Dick, I'll give the final word to you. Just 2 things I did want to say. I do think that a club campaign like this and winning an All-Ireland club title, I do think it cements the status of certain players. And I do think Paul Gainey's status is greatly enhanced with this, as is probably Tom O'Sullivan's. And then the other one I'd say is about Mark O'Connor, and just like Geelong have definitely... it's like, over to you now, GAA managers, be it club or county. This is what can be done when you let a player kind of do what he wants to do, something that's so close to his heart. Let them play games. When you see a professional outfit doing that, and even like the Geelong lads, a handful of them coming over, the rest of them having a watch along over to watch the final, and clearly invested in him and invested in Dingle as a result. Like for Mark O'Connor, like he's probably flying back tomorrow, I'd say. But by Jesus, imagine the amount of energy that he'll be infused with for this year, for the next coming years, for his to bring out his professional contract, given what they've done for him now.
But you know, just focus on him as the sort of finishing point on him. Like, Mark O'Connor's a professional athlete and a damn fine specimen of an athlete at that. He didn't look out of place, or he didn't stand out as much, which is a testament to the conditioning. Like, look at club football, like that what we've seen on at the weekend in terms of the standard, the pace, like, it never dropped. Even towards the end, like there wasn't too many boys dropping down with cramp. You know, the days of, you go back to club finals 15, 20 years ago, there would a portly corner forward or a few boys who were sort of well built or filling out the jersey. Like that's when I was at the Scotstown Bridges game. Like where club football has got to now is what county football was 10, 15 years ago, that a professional athlete like Mark O'Connor can slip in there and not dominate it like you might think that he could. He had to work bloody hard against the two boys, Conan and his, what's his name, Malloy from Bridges, big strong men. And I just thought as a spectacle, like whatever about club football, you'll always have the romanticism and the subplots and the locality, but for our pride of place game at club level to be played at such an intensity and athleticism like that, it was proud to watch. Now it just means that for every other county has aspirations, or any club's aspirations now to win an All-Ireland club title, like the bar has been risen so high now, because that's what you have to meet. So anyone looking to knock Bridget's off their pedestal in Roscommon have to come up to that, and the same with everything behind them, because like the game is just sort of moving on so fast. And like Mark O'Connor was a testament, and it was great, as you say, that Geelong allowed him to do that, sent a few guys over, and I'd say they were sitting in the stands going, mother of God, these guys are not only amateurs, they're club footballers, they're a tier below inter-county level, and this is the standard that it's at. I'd say they got a bit of an eye-opener, maybe see what the whole fuss is about.
Yeah.
But actually, sorry, just on one point, because you mentioned him there, Tom O'Sullivan. I mean, Tom O'Sullivan's, like, I know Dylan Gainey got man of the match, but Tom O'Sullivan's performance, okay, he scored 5 points in the entire game, but Tom O'Sullivan's performance in the last couple of minutes of extra time has to be highlighted, because it was most definitely a case of come at the hour, come at the man. Tom O'Sullivan was cramping, he was struggling. He only had 4 possessions in extra time. 4 possessions. With 2 minutes to go, and Dingle were 2 points down. He had the composure and the decision-making to take a point. Not try to force the issue and try to get a 2-point equaliser. He took his point, then took another point, and then laid on the point to Mikey Gainey. I mean, it was composure and decision-making and leadership at its very best. And he's been doing this from years ago with Public School Kirkcalgina to the Kerry Minors to the Kerry Seniors, and now with Dingle. I thought just that cameo, 2 or 3 minutes, was unreal.
And you know what I enjoyed about those few last players? I said to the boys beside me who are getting to the stage now, they're trying to get into S&C and see what it needs to be to play at that high level. If you watch them, you talk about at leadership and conviction and confidence that maybe some of the Roscommon players were lacking, Pat. He got that ball out in the Cusack stand side 50, 60 yards out. He knew exactly what he was doing. I'm lining my man up here. There's nobody else getting this ball. He backed himself. He dropped the shoulder, took the pace with the right style, rode the tackle, found space, and backed himself to kick it over. You could see him lining it up, because he was saying, I'm the leader here. I'm not passing the buck. I'm not going to do the handy hand pass to somebody else. I'm throwing this up on my shoulders. And he done it. Like, he'd everything in there in terms of pace, decision making, accuracy, backing himself, all distilled into one moment, and it was just phenomenal.
But Dick, it's not by accident.
Not at all, no.
And you're talking about how fit the club players are. But the professionalism, I mean, I don't know whether you heard the list again last week. Dingle have 19 in their backroom team. I mean, they have Paddy Cochran, they have Tommy Griffin, who were coaches with the Kerry Seniors. But this year, they left no stone unturned. They brought in Aidan O'Shea, Jack O'Shea's son, who is no doubt about it, the best young coach in Gaelic football in Kerry. They brought him in. But another vital person they brought in, and this is the key to Thomas, they brought in James Weldon. Now, James Weldon is the manager of the Irish, from Fussa, is the manager of the Irish ladies basketball team, basketball background. And you could see in that movement by Tom O'Sullivan, they were basketball moves. They were pre-planned moves, getting the shooter into position and shooting. But there was a very interesting interview with James Weldon during the summer. And one of the things he did when he was a couple of mornings a week at daylight, he drove from Fussa back to Dingle to work, not with the county players, because the county players, to work with the other Dingle players, working on their skills, working on their shooting at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. And you can see it pays off. And you take All-Ireland finals are unique because sometimes they throw up unsung heroes. And like you take a case like Ty De Bruyne. Ty De Bruyne is a good average club footballer, Kerry. Last Sunday, he was immense. He ran all over the field, scored 3 points. And, like it's not by accident that they're All-Ireland champions.
I tell you something, Pat, I'd say the only 6:30 a.m. sessions they're on this week is in Paul Ganey's bar or somewhere quiet they can get to. But you'd love to be a fly on the wall down in Dingle. I think the picture going around was that there wouldn't be a tourist milked in Dingle this week. I doubt that. Knowing ye Kerry boys, Pat, I'm sure there'd still be a few people milked. But it was the perfect finale to what was an unbelievable club football campaign.
All they need now is Funky to come back. They've milked it. Anyway.